10:06. So the three of you that are here, thank you. Lucy, you don't need this because you made this, but that's okay. I added a couple of things that after we talked about. So Carrie, you're already licensed here and you've actually helped me hone in on this too. So we're just going to walk through this. We're going to go over, and whoever wants to, joins after, we'll just kind of walk through it. And this is just our setup here at Keller Williams so Lucy is our amazing broker, compliance broker, who keeps us all in line and make sure we don't get sued or fined. And so we have checklists, we have, everything that keeps our lives in order. So this one is the North Carolina buyer consultation checklist. And then the next one is the North Carolina purchase documents checklist. And then we're going to run through, all the paperwork with that. It is probably going to take me the whole 2 hours just because I want to be very thorough. And of course, Carrie, if you have any input, Nikki, if you have any questions, Lucy, if you think of something, that way I can add it and we can just better this training. So I want to get right to it, to the North Carolina buyer consultation checklist. And if you guys want a copy of this, please let me know. Keller Williams agents, it is on our Facebook page. But for my non-Keller Williams agents, I can give you a copy of this, no worries at all. Like I said before, sharing is caring, and that's what we do here at our office. So here's the checklist. I'm not going to read everything because you guys can read. So we're just going to walk through everything. And if you guys have any input or additional things that I'm possibly missing, let me know. So working with real estate agents disclosure for the buying side. So we went over the seller side. It's the same thing, essentially for the buyers. So this form is not a contract. Remember, in North Carolina, when you first have that initial conversation with a customer, and then they start getting into personal stuff and financial stuff, that North Carolina wants you to then present this form and say, okay, not because we don't want verbal, we want it in writing. So this is just a disclosure of saying, hey, signing this disclosure only means you have received it. I'm going to go over agencies with you. In a real estate transaction, it's important that you understand whether an agent represents you or not. So that is what this working with real estate agents disclosure is. It is not the buyer broker, but you do have to go over everything with them. So in this packet, this is what you have to go over with your client. So just, below, check all relationship types below that may apply to this buyer. So buyer agency, if you agree the agent who gave you this form and the agent's firm would represent you as a buyer agent and be loyal to you. Again, buyer agency, pretty self-explanatory. Dual agency will occur if you purchase a property listed by the firm that represents you. If you agree, the real estate firm and any agent with the same firm would be permitted to represent you and the seller at the same time. KW doesn't do dual agency. So we are going to click designated dual agency. If you agree, the real estate firm would represent both you and the seller, but the firm would designate one agent to represent you and a different agent to represent the seller. So I actually just went through my continued education with North Carolina, and they had a really good representation that I'm going to send you, Lucy, and I think we should include it in our forms because it's a visual, right? Because some people still don't understand the dual agency and the designated dual agency. Designated is pretty straightforward, but the dual in North Carolina. So there was, let me see actually if I have it on the phone because I took pictures because I was like, that helps me. I'm a visual learner. So I can actually send an email you guys those slideshows that I took pictures of because the light bulb went off for me finally when it came to that. So and if you guys of course need any more information on continued ed, just let me know. But I really thought that it was something that we could implement. So there you go. Let's see if I can get this on here. I can't even see myself right now. Hold on. So, oh, my background is blurring it. Hold on. I don't need a filter. Let's not blur it. There we go. Okay. So you guys take a picture of this screen, my screen. Again, I can email you this, but how it breaks down the dual agency is pretty sweet. So.
Yeah, that definitely simplifies it. I like that.
Doesn't it? Yeah, I was like, holy moly, thank you. So I did my continuing education through Skyline, and it was a lady that I took my one of my courses with. I'll send you guys all that information. She was amazing. Like, I was following along at 9 a.m. in the morning. It was awesome. And then the designated dual agency diagram is here. So, I mean, it's very simplified. So I will definitely get all of this out to you guys, because it's pretty important. Again, I learn something new every day in this. So it's exactly why we do these trainings and the continued ed. So moving along. And if your buyer wants to be unrepresented, so the agent who gave you this form may assist you in your purchase, but will not be representing you and has no loyalty to you. So this is literally telling the buyer what we do as agents and their options. And learning in the continued ed, they do not select it. You check the box and you tell them what your firm offers. This is not a handoff of, hey, here's my disclosure. You have to walk them through it. You have to tell them what your firm covers and what they do not allow. So just so you guys, this isn't just a general form, because some of these pamphlets, here you go. That's additional information. It's not required. So, but this stuff is required. So this is your buyer broker. This is your exclusive buyer agency agreement. So Lucy has done our office wonders with pre-filling, the blanks for us. And, I'm going to walk through it, and then we'll add some more examples if you guys are confused or need more explanation. So this agreement is between the buyer and your firm. So Keller Williams Realty, at the buyer's exclusive agent to assist the buyer in the acquisition of real estate property. Okay. If the buyer is in a corporation, limited liability company, trust, or other legal entity, the entity should be named as buyer and a duly authorized officer, manager, trustee. So it tells you on here, hey, if this is your type of client, do this. Okay. And remember, all of these forms have guideline forms as well. So if it just doesn't click, check those forms. And then if it still doesn't click, call your BIC, call me, call somebody. Okay. So getting into it. So type of property, residential or commercial. Most of us will be residential. So you click residential. General location, you want to include the city and the county name especially in North Carolina. So Currituck County. You can put Moyock, you can put Camden. I list as many as possible, because some clients, they'll go anywhere from South Mills to Edenton to Elizabeth City to somewhere. So cover everything that you are helping them with. Effective agreement. So this is hey, this is when we're starting together. Okay. And then your termination. Okay. So for buyers who intend to purchase a single property, you'll click the first box. This agreement shall terminate when the buyer acquires real property of the type described in paragraph 1. Okay. For buyers who may purchase more than one property, this agreement shall terminate on this date. So at your discretion, if you're working with a client who is an investor or purchasing more than one, obviously you click the second box. So compensation of firm. So firm acknowledges receipt of non-refundable retainer fee in the amount of 0. We don't do that. So, but if your firm does, excuse me, put in the amount there, which shall or shall not be credited towards any compensation due firm under this agreement. Option B, buyers agrees that firm's fee for services hereunder shall be in the amount of 3%. Okay. This is telling them, hey, this is what I get. Okay. As you guys remember, North Carolina does 2.5%. That's their norm. But this is where you really have to explain this part to your client. If you are firm on your 3%, they have to cover that lack. So if the seller's giving you 2.5%, your client has to give you that 0.5% to cover. Okay. You've earned it, you deserve it. But if you're like me, I do 2.5 and I'm cool with it, whatever. So fill this out at your discretion. Make sure your firm and your broke and your BIC all give you the A-OK on that. Okay. So firm shall seek the fee from a cooperating listing firm. It explains that through the listing firm's offer of compensation in the MLS or otherwise, or from the seller if there's no listing firm. And buyer agrees that firm shall be entitled to receive same in consideration for firm services hereunder. If buyer purchases property where the compensation offered by the listing firm and or seller is less than the fee, or where no compensation is offered for sale by owner, by either the listing firm or the seller, buyer and firm agree that buyer will pay the difference between the fee. Okay, so it's laid out right there for your client. Okay, if additional compensation, incentive, bonuses, rebates, blah, 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 is offered through the MLS or otherwise, buyer will permit the firm to receive it in addition to the fee. Firm shall timely disclose the promise or expectation of receiving any such additional compensation. So disclose. You and your client initial on page 1. So compensation shall be deemed earned under any of the following circumstances. If during the term of this agreement, buyer, any assignee of buyer, or any person, legal entity acting on behalf of the buyer directly or indirectly enters into agreement to purchase, option, and or exchange any property of the type described above, regardless of the manner in which buyer was introduced to the property, or if within 90 days after expiration of this agreement, that's your protection period. Remember, we were talking about that. So buyer enters into a contract to acquire property introduced to buyer during the term of this agreement by the firm or any third party, unless buyer has entered into a valid buyer agency agreement with another real estate firm. So some people put 30 days, some people put 60 days. We like to protect ourselves, and we're going to put 90 days because you just don't know what these people are doing out here. So if having entered into an enforceable contract to acquire property during the term of this agreement, buyer defaults under the terms of that contract, that compensation will be due and payable at distribution of proceeds from the sale. So again, self-explanatory here. In the note, like, always look at the boxes. If you guys haven't realized that, always look at the big colored boxes on these forms. They really explain a lot of like questions that I get asked, questions that Lucy gets asked. It really kind of breaks it down, but if in that explanation it still doesn't make sense, always use your resources. Go to the North Carolina Commission's website. North Carolina information is all out there. They're really good at finally keeping themselves updated. And Lucy, I realized one of our forms needs to be updated. But well, you know what I mean? Keep on your stuff, because North Carolina is getting on the ball and getting, their items updated. So buyer understands and acknowledges that there is a potential for a conflict of interest generated by a percentage of price-based fee for representing buyer. The amount, format, or rate of real estate commission is not fixed by law, but is set by each broker individually and may be negotiable between buyer and firm. Okay. So somebody says, if any conversation of commission comes up, tell them about this, so I know that's been a topic here lately. Goes over attorney fees and costs. The buyer purchases unimproved property. Agent may assist buyer in identifying a contractor to make improvements in the property. Buyer acknowledges and understands that in such case, the contractor may offer to compensate agent. Agent shall disclose to the buyer the existence of such an offer of compensation before buyer enters into a contract with the contractor. And buyer hereby is consent to the receipt of agent of any such compensation. It covers you. So if you've got any side gig going on, disclose, you know what I mean? Let your people know what's going on with you. Be transparent, because that you're protected otherwise. So other potential buyers, buyer understands that other prospective purchasers represented by the firm may seek property, submit offers, and contract to purchase property through firm, including the same or similar property as buyer seeks to purchase. I don't know how many of you have gone through that this year. I have. Woo! It's a little like, oh my God, what do I do? When you're offering your two clients on the same property, but of course, use your discretion, whatever you're comfortable with, but it does disclose that to each buyer that you work with. So number 6, firm duties. During the term of this agreement, firm shall promote the interest of the buyer by A, performing the terms of this agreement, B, seeking property at a price and terms acceptable to buyer, presenting in a timely manner, disclosing to buyer all material facts related to the property or concerning the transaction of which firms have actual knowledge, accounting for in a timely manner all money and property received. So the good thing about again, these contracts, everything has a date. So just run through these contracts with your buyer. I can't emphasize that enough. A lot of people just pass them on and be like, read it, sign it, you're good. No, don't ever do that. Let's read through it, make sure everybody understands that you do have a hired, a job here. North Carolina relies on their buyer's agents to get the due diligence fee to the listing firm. If your client doesn't wire it, so I've always practiced that's not my money, I don't want to deal with it. North Carolina really doesn't give you an option unless your client literally mails the check directly to the listing agent. So I've had that happen a couple of times, but because due diligence is due in 24 hours after you get under contract. So it's very much so figure that out with your client, from the jump of how are you guys wanting to do this? Do you want me to be hands-on with your money or do you got it? So it just kind of outlines our responsibilities, that it can be our job, but just to your comfort level, especially with the money deal. So upon closing of any sale of property not entered in a listing service of which firm is a member, buyer authorizes firm to submit pertinent information concerning the property, including sales price, to such listing service. So disclosure of buyer's name and mailing address. So unless otherwise stated in paragraph 13 below, firm has buyer's permission to disclose buyer's name. So in accordance with North Carolina General Statute Section 93A:12, if a dispute regarding the return or forfeit of any earnest money deposit arises between buyer and seller of any real estate property, buyer may agree to purchase. The escrow agent holding the deposit may deposit the disputed monies within the appropriate clerk of court following written notice of the parties. In the event of any such dispute, buyer directs firm to disclose buyer's last known mailing address to the escrow agent upon request to enable the escrow agent to comply with the notice requirement. So this one is kind of weird because they have to include their mailing address on the offer to purchase anyway. So you're already disclosing that to the selling side and the listing firm. But this again covers your tracks with this. So the agent firm shall conduct all brokerage activities in regard to this agreement without respect to the race, color, religion, sex, national origin, handicap, or familial status of any party or prospective party. Code of ethics, y'all. Do not discriminate based on that. Warning, buyer letters to seller. Personal letters to sellers expressing why a buyer wishes to purchase a seller's property is a tactic sometimes used to attempt to make a buyer's offer stand out to the seller. Such letters often contain personal information and reveal characteristics of the buyer, which could be used knowingly or through unconscious bias as a basis for the seller's decision to accept or reject an offer that may violate state and federal fair housing laws in order to avoid potential liability for unlawful discrimination as well as the appearance of impropriety. A buyer should discuss with firm how any such letters will be handled. I don't know about you guys. I don't advise it strictly based off this. If we haven't thought about it that way, maybe we should start. Especially in this market, I actually just had a client do a personal letter. They had their picture, they had their kids, they had, they made it super personal, which in their case worked out because in that neighborhood, they knew like 5 other families, you know what I mean? So their comfort level in that neighborhood was good. So I was like, that's the most beautiful personal letter that I've ever seen in my life. But, let's make sure you're still protecting yourself and your family. Yes, your names are out there. And yes, people can get on Facebook and Google you and all this stuff. But you've got to make sure that this warning right here makes sense. Because then if your offer is not accepted and you feel like you have been, a victim of the fair housing laws, this could be sticky. So just be aware, kind of educate your buyers on the personal letter stuff. Buyer's duties. Buyer agrees to cooperate with firm and acquisition of real property of the type described below, working exclusively with firm during the terms of this agreement. Immediately referring to firm information about any properties buyer may have an interest in. Complying with the reasonable request of the firm to supply any pertinent financial or personal data needed to fulfill the terms of this agreement. being available for reasonable periods of time to examine properties, examining properties only by appointments made by or through firm and accompanied by an agent or firm, conducting all negotiations and communications through firm, conducting all due diligence on property in consultation with firm, and paying for all products and or services required in the examination and evaluation of properties, so your surveys, your water soil tests, title reports, yada yada. Very important. Again, we have a lot of clients right now who are scrambling, right? They want to get a house. They feel like their due diligence is, I mean, some of them can take it to a level. I've been a victim of that. And it can get them in trouble. So just remind them like, hey, do your due diligence, but when it comes to physically seeing the property, entering the property, being close to the property at this point, make sure I am with you. Make sure that I know I have told you that it's okay to go, like really break it down for your people, because some people don't understand that we are here for multiple reasons, not just to write your offer for you. So other professional advice, in addition to the services rendered to the buyer by the firm under the terms, professional advice in there, taxation, financing, insurance, surveying, wood destroying insect, all of this stuff, others pertaining to any proposed transaction. Although a firm may provide buyer the names of providers who claim to perform such services, buyer understands that firm cannot guarantee the quality of services or level of expertise of any such provider. Covers your butt. Okay. These items are available in Brokerment, that's our system, and are required to be provided to the buyer. Please have buyer initial each item. So these are the pamphlets that I refer to. These are additional stuff. So according to North Carolina, these do not have to be given to your client. It's just additional information. KW likes to cover our butts. Okay. Educate your clients as much as possible. North Carolina is a buyer due diligence state. Provide them with what they need. North Carolina provides us with that information. So provide it. KW agents, you have to check these boxes. So acknowledges the receipt, sample copy of the offer to purchase. So they get a copy of it before you sit down with them and go through it. Okay. Questions and answers on home inspections. So important. A lot of confusion still, I know you guys hear it, is, well, I have to have a home inspection to, because of my lender. No, you don't. Like that brochure explains the importance of it, and it walks you through it. So you don't really have to. So buyer acknowledges receipt of sample of copy of a professional services disclosure and election form. The professional services disclosure, they can see it if they want. I give mine and I fill out just a few slots, right? That to pertain to my client. So if I know that they need a home inspection, but they're like, I'll go with whoever you got, I'll list the ones that I have and I make them pick. So I give them more than one option, because again, it's a service to your client. So home warranty, the seller of any property buyer may be interested in buying may or may not provide a home warranty as part of any sale. If the seller does not provide a home warranty, buyer may elect to purchase one. Buyer understands that although a firm will assist buyer in identifying available home warranty products, buyer must refer specific questions regarding coverage afforded by any such product to the provider thereof. If the firm assists the buyer in obtaining a home a home warranty, a fee of $0 will be offered to firm by the person or entity through or from any home warranty is obtained as compensation to the firm. We don't do that, so if you have affiliation with them, that's on you. Lucy, I don't know the legalities of this. I don't know how they do that. I know that we don't. So, or me personally, but if you do, and your firm does, your firm offers, or has an agreement with that, you have to disclose it and let them know.
Yeah, it's just a matter of informing the consumer that if you purchase this particular warranty, this warranty rebates a certain amount that will go to my brokerage, and my brokerage will share that with that's all.
Okay. Yeah, I was like, I've never done that. So I was like,
And
for me.
it used to be a standard thing. And I don't know that the warranty companies we work with even do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, ma'am. Moving along, additional provisions. So if your firm offers or has an admin fee, like Keller Williams does, please put it here. Buyer shall pay an administrative fee of $3.95 to Keller Williams Realty upon closing. Simple as that. They know that they have to pay it. And yes, VA clients, per the lender, do not pay administrative fee. Still have that conversation with them. You know, I've had VA clients pay, just they wrote a check. You know, it's not through the lender. It's they make sure once you really bring value to your, you know, for yourself, for your office, for your admin, everything makes sense to a client. So just enforce that and make sure that they understand every firm has an administrative fee. So this really dives into the dual agency, so that I'm not going to go over this. We've beaten this to death. Please read it though, if it helps you understand it. I hope it does. So, but this is just that dual agency disclosure. Again, Keller Williams doesn't do it. So I really say this doesn't apply to us. We don't do it. We won't do it. If someone wants a more in-depth explanation, obviously I do that. But when I, you know, explain it to them in layman terms of, hey, you know, me representing you and the seller is not in the best interest. Hell, for me, why would it be for you? So, you know, they understand it that way. Buyer agrees, firm shall not be liable to buy. Yeah, that's still a dual agency. So firm should become a dual agent. This is where they will acknowledge that. So again, down here at the bottom, Keller Williams does not allow a single agent to fully represent both buyer and seller under an agency agreement without manager discretion in writing. So again, that's up to you. If you feel like you can do it, if you feel like it's ethical, go for it. But you have to get your BIC's approval. So the initial only one here. So the authorization for the firm to act as a dual agent, or if they desire exclusive. So initial only if it applies under the designated agent option. So you should have initials. Okay, buyer initials, and then your initials again. Keeping it moving, dual agency compensation. So say your office does, please fill out the total compensation here. So if the firm acts as a dual agent, the total fee the firm expects to, and this includes designated agency as well. So please fill this out, 6% of the purchase price. I mean, or whatever you want, just cover yourself 6%. So mediation, you know what I mean? Mediate before you litigate. I want to talk to you before I sue you, you know, enter agreement, changes, termination. So entire agreement. I cannot read today. This agreement constitutes the entire agreement between buyer and firm relating to the subject thereof. So this agreement may be signed in multiple originals or counterparts, which have all together constitute one and the same instrument. So if there's additional stuff, you know, in here, it needs to be included in here, you know. And if they want to terminate with you, any such termination shall be by mutually acceptable written agreement signed by both buyer and firm. So you have to get your firm to sign off, just like in Virginia. So buyer should consult with firm before visiting any resale or new homes or contacting any other real estate firm representing sellers to avoid the possibility of confusion over the brokerage relationship and misunderstanding about liability for compensation. Right there, big blue box. But everybody misses it. So about videotaping, buyer is advised to be mindful of the fact that there could be video, audio, surveillance devices located on property examined by buyer, and that buyer or buyer's representatives may be under surveillance during any such examinations. Federal and state laws prohibit the interception of an oral communication through the use of any electronic, mechanical, or other device, whether or not recorded, without the consent of a party to that communication. However, video surveillance without consent is not illegal. So just advise them, don't talk in the house. Just don't do it. do like some hand signals and stuff, you know, I don't know. But this is obviously, with all the technology that we have, every house you step foot in is somehow recording you. So just keep that in mind. Photos and videos, unless the property owner has notified the public that photography and video recording is prohibited, it is permissible to photograph or video the interior of private property, since the owner's permission to enter the property implies permission to do so. However, under no circumstances may buyer take photos or videos that intrude on a property owner's reasonable expectations of privacy. Very vague. Just don't take pictures of their underwear drawer, you know, like that's weird. Don't do that. You know, it's just stuff of that nature. So explain that to your buyer, you know, especially us that are dealing with out of town clients. We have to videotape the property. And a lot of times they want additional photos, you know, just make sure they understand we're taking pictures of what we see, not, you know, just, I'm not going to dig into something to try and figure it out. You know, that's what we're doing your home inspection for. But if we're not doing a home inspection, I'm going to do the most I can. That is moral and ethical and won't get me in trouble. So cool. That's just right here, plain view. Yeah, contents of medicine cabinet. Okay, don't do that. That's rude. So keep it going. Wire fraud warning. This is their warning here. You guys to know to always point them in the right direction of who their closing attorney is. Call them. Call them. You know, always confirm. You know, I get it all the time. They're like, hey, so-and-so sent me this. Is it good to go? Call them, you know. So kind of, you know, because there's pretty much a standard for wiring these days. But again, we don't do that. You don't do that. You're not the one sending them the bank information or the instructions. So instruct them to the attorney. Buyer understands, acknowledges, and understands that there are risks associated with wire transfers. Oh, okay, that's wire transfers. Okay. Buyer and firm each hereby acknowledge receipt of a signed copy of this agreement. Boom. So buyer signs their contact info, mailing address, and then if they're a business, they sign here. And then that final page is you. This really is one of two things that we actually ever sign. So sign your buyer broker. Yeah. Any questions about that, ladies? I can keep it rocking. Next is our Keller Williams cybersecurity notice. Again, just covering our tracks, covering our butts, you know, like we are telling the client, if your credit card info's out there, your bank info's out there, the routing numbers, everything, just be cautious, you know, just be cautious. So this is our cybersecurity notice that they do need per our office. And escrow agency, we do not hold earnest money deposits. So whoever your client decides to close with, you know, an attorney, because North Carolina is an attorney state, fill out their information. If you, this isn't, and also, of course, it's only a suggestion, right? Your clients normally go with your suggestions. So fill in here who you trust. If you don't have somebody, you know, contact your office, and get some good recommendations, because that's what I've been having to do with these attorneys out here. I heard a lot of them, you know, they're all just very different. So that's it for what you have to provide to your client when you first get together with them. Per this checklist, though, we need all the samples, right? So from home inspection pamphlet, pretty much down. All of this stuff is on the North Carolina Commission's website. I have a lot of them saved on my computer that I could probably show you. Some of them are probably outdated, but they're literally pamphlets. So each of them are 2 pages long. Let me see. Let me pull it up for you, just so you guys can kind of see. They're kind of old school. Where do I have these in? Yeah. I have a lot of folders, sorry, y'all. Let's see. That's the old one. There used to be a working with agents brochure. I'll get there. Give me 1 second. I just want to give you guys an example. This is all for Virginia. Uno momento. Oh, look at that. I had a folder. Make your life easier. Make a folder. It's a subdivisions. Let's pull it up. This is probably an outdated one, but they're there. And they're 2 pages long. Okay. So these are things at our office at Keller Williams. Your client has to initial that they have received it. So literally just upload it into wherever you use and have them initial. I have them initial the first page. So questions and answers, you know, homeowners association. I mean, it's very informative, and I advise you guys read them because they are very informative. So any questions? I'll absolutely get this checklist out to you, ladies, as we do not have any gentlemen on here. You guys ready to roll on to the purchase? The offer to purchase and contract. So with our North Carolina purchase documents checklist, right, we have a lot of required documents. Again, that is to cover you. So if you don't know how to access tax records, please ask somebody. You have to go to the county websites in North Carolina. You need a copy of that though. You need to print out the MLS when you showed it, because agents are shady and they can change commissions. They can change items that convey. Just cover yourself, right? Pre-approval letter, proof of funds. Do not go see a house without a pre-approval letter, please. Attorney worksheet, have that with you. And kind of go over it with your client too, you know. Additional provisions that comes with the offer to purchase. These are going to be very important in this next hour. I'm going to try and get it done within an hour for you ladies. So let's hit it. So offer to purchase and contract, terms and definitions, right? Straightforward. Seller's name, buyer's full legal names. This will be used for title. So use the name on the driver's license, okay? If your client, Joseph Miller, has a middle name, but he doesn't like it, but it's on his driver's license and it's on the lender approval letter, sorry, bro. It's got to be on there, okay? Everything has to match. Property shall include street address, the city, the zip, and the county. So again, we're located in Moyock and Currituck County. All right. All of this information. So if you don't use zip forms, if you don't use, you know, something that automates the information straight to, you know, these forms for you, it's on the MLS. All this information is on the MLS printout. So it's going to be at the top. Let me see if I have one to show you all. Because when you first look at it and you're like, what am I looking at? Because it's a lot of information. They have tiny, tiny font that they use. Give me 1 second. I think it's pretty important. You would think that I would have mine. There we go. All right. If you've never seen this before, I just want to show you. So this is the printouts. Okay, so up at the top is all of our information. All right, so let me highlight some for you. So the lot number, you know, you've got your county, you got your subdivision, neighborhood, year built, and North Carolina does approximate. Nobody wants approximate. They want to know, right? So I always highlight the actual. So the total, and of course it says approximate, total, approximate, heated, that will have one number. It won't have a range. So you've got a map number, a plat number, a deed page number, a deed book number. Your PIN is very important. Approximate acres. And then the other on here, that is actually your legal description. So on here it says other. Is actually the legal description of the property. Okay. So again, do your homework, scan through this MLS, really know where the items are before you get to this point, because you know it will take you forever to get through this. So just wanted to point that out for you, ladies. Back to business. So legal description, you fill everything out that you can, right? So a lot of them don't have the blocker section. That's okay. What's really important is the information that is there. What's really important is the deed book number and the page. Okay. If for some reason the MLS does not have that on there, you can look it up on the county tax site. Okay. All right. So your purchase price, excuse me. For an example, we've got $100,000. Okay. Your due diligence fee. I finally have like super clear education on this. Due diligence fee. It gets delivered to the seller. This is your, I want to buy your house, good faith money. Okay. This check gets made out to, or if it's cash, it goes straight to the seller. If you default on the contract, or if you try to, excuse me, not default, if you try to just remove yourself from the contract, it doesn't matter if you have the right to or you default, you lose the due diligence. Okay. If you go to closing, your due diligence gets applied towards the price of the home. Okay. So it's essentially a second earnest money, but this is saying, please accept my offer, take your home off of the market for me. And if I try to back out, no matter what, it's yours. Okay. By initial earnest money deposit. Oh, and I was reading somewhere that due diligence fees, they like to see them anywhere between 3 and 5% of the purchase price, which is mind blowing to me because I spoke with a VA lender and they don't like to see a high due diligence because that's money out of the client's, pocket that they don't get back, even if they have the right to remove themselves from it. So just consult your client, consult the lender, make sure they are good to, divvy up the amounts that they're thinking, because again, it acts as earnest money. It comes out of their account, but it will be applied at the end if they go through with it. Okay. Earnest money deposit, same thing. If you're within your due diligence time period and you need to get out of the contract, you can, and you will get your earnest money back. So you just fill it in here, check the appropriate box. If they're going to wire it, if they're going to do, the bank transfer, whatever. If they have an additional earnest money deposit, and if they're doing by assumption, if they are seller financing, or if this is a new construction contract, you will do by builder deposit, fill it out accordingly. So, and then you subtract your fees to get your balance. Sorry, y'all. Excuse me. All righty. Moving along. I mean, it's again pretty self-explanatory. If the parties agree that buyer will pay any fee or deposit described above by electronic transfer, seller agrees to cooperate in effecting such transfer, including the establishment of any necessary account and providing any necessary information to buyer, provided, however, buyer shall be responsible for additional costs, if any, associated with such transfer. So should buyer fail to deliver either the due diligence or any initial earnest money deposit by their due dates, or should any check or other funds paid by the buyer be dishonored for any reason by the institution upon which the payment is drawn, buyer shall have 1 banking day after written notice to deliver cash, official bank check, wire transfer, or electronic transfer to have transferred to the payee. In the event buyer does not timely deliver the required funds, seller shall have the right to terminate this contract upon written notice to the buyer, and seller shall be entitled to recover the due diligence fee together with all earnest money deposit paid or to be paid in the future. In addition, seller may be entitled to recover reasonable attorney fees and court costs. So just get it in on time. Okay. So due diligence fee, 24 hours. And this is where we can find those. So I believe it's 24 hours for due diligence. I don't know. I was told that, but I was just like, okay, I'll do it. So the initial earnest money deposit, the additional earnest money deposit, and any other earnest monies paid or required to be paid in connection with the transaction collectively, the earnest money deposit shall be deposited promptly and held in escrow by escrow agent until closing, at which time will be credited to buyer, or until this contract is otherwise terminated. In the event this offer is not accepted or a condition of any resulting contract is not satisfied, then the earnest money deposit shall be refunded to the buyer. See paragraph 23 for remedies in the event of breach of this contract, and we'll get there. So, but yes, due diligence, please note 24 hours after you get under contract. Normally the agents, because again, this is that part where you're responsible or your client is responsible to get it to the listing firm's office, or you know what I mean? So however you are navigating this part, just do it fast, communicate with the listing agent. As I enforce this because this was brought to my attention of just a last transaction that I did. So I thought it was cool for us to go under contract on Friday and we get due diligence to the seller by Monday. That wasn't okay. I had to go there bright and early the next morning. So, which is okay. Now we know. So your escrow agent. So whoever you guys are using, whoever your attorney. Okay. In the event of a dispute between seller and buyer over the disposition of the earnest money deposit held in escrow, a licensed real estate broker is required by state law to retain the earnest money deposit in the escrow account, trust, or escrow account until escrow agent has obtained a written release from the parties consenting to its disposition, or until disbursement is ordered by a court. Okay. We went to school for this. Parties agree that a real estate brokerage firm acting as escrow agent may place the earnest money deposit in an interest-bearing trust account. Okay. So just go over them. If your firm does accept earnest money. Okay. So effective date to the term, the date that the last one of buyer and seller has signed or initialed this offer, or the final counter offer, if any, and 2, such signing of initialing is communicated to the party making the offer or counter offer, as the case may be. The parties acknowledge and agree that the initials lines at the bottom of each page of this contract are merely evidence of their having reviewed the terms of each page, and that the complete execution of such initials lines shall not be conditioned of the effectiveness of this agreement. Okay. As Lucy noted here, make sure the buyer understands due diligence fee is only credited at closing. If buyer terminates during due diligence, seller keeps the due diligence fee. Ta-da. Okay. So the terms, right? So buyer's opportunity to investigate the property and the transaction contemplated by this contract, including but not necessarily limited to the matters described in paragraph 4, to decide whether the buyer, in buyer's sole discretion, will just proceed with or terminate the transaction. Okay. The fee, a negotiated amount, if any, paid by buyer to seller with this contract for buyer's right to terminate the contract for any reason or no reason during the due diligence period. Okay. As Lucy stated, have your buyer initial next to this paragraph showing that they understand this. Okay. It shall be the property of seller upon the effective date and shall be a credit to buyer at closing. Right there. The due diligence fee shall be non-refundable, except in the event of a material breach of this contract by seller. Okay.
Can I just enter?
Go ahead.
The initialing of that paragraph for the due diligence fee by the buyers was a suggestion made to us by the North Carolina Commission attorney. So that's not just a Lucy suggestion. We've
Yeah.
had situations where buyers got really angry because they didn't fully understand and took it out on the agent. So we wanted to find out, how do we protect our agents with regards to this due diligence fee? And the suggestion that came back from the attorney was have them initial that they understand this paragraph.
Thank you, ma'am. Like this is the questions that we get all the time. Carrie actually brought it to my attention. She's like, wait a minute, can they get out, term free and get their earnest money if they didn't negotiate any due diligence? That was a great question. And yes, you can. If you negotiated zero, they didn't offer anything, then you don't lose anything. You get your earnest money, get out of the contract if you need to. Okay. So 0 is an agreed amount. So it's very important. I've done 0 too, Carrie. It's I've done 0 a couple times. I've done $100. I've done $250. I've done 500, but it's just really your buyer's discretion. A lot of and up to the seller too. It's what matters most to that seller on that house. Is it seeing a high due diligence? Is it seeing a higher earnest money? You know what I mean? It's all strategic. So just inform your client. It gets applied to the final purchase price if you go through with it. So just be aware. Excuse me. If it's a house built in 2015, you probably know that you're going to move forward with it as long as, we're good to go. But if we're talking a home built 50 to 100 years ago, you may want to be wary, right? We could run into some really big issues, and so, yeah, it's really of whatever your client wants to risk. So due diligence period, holy moly, please highlight this. Is so much information that we have learned. Okay. As you see, Lucy, I added to it. So the due diligence period, the period beginning on the effective date and extending through 5 p.m. on this date, time being of the essence. Okay. This part, we put this information in here so you can really strategize with your client on how long they need. The due diligence period covers all inspections, all repairs that were negotiated to be completed, your appraisal to come in and clear, your lender approval for your client, and any other buyer contingency to be cleared within this time frame. Okay, so everything has to happen pretty much within the due diligence period. If you go past the due diligence period, you're screwed if you want to try and get out. Okay, so really think about it. This is exactly why due diligence periods in North Carolina are 2-week minimum, like minimum. So just really keep that in mind. So especially, go ahead.
Is it fair to say, with the exception of VA, because of the addendum, that you could go outside of that due diligence period?
I wouldn't. I would just protect your client as much as possible with putting everything. And this is us Virginia agents going against the grain in North Carolina, right? So what's one thing we don't do in real estate? We don't assume. And a lot of this information in North Carolina, it's just assumed, right? So we know that our VA client cannot pay for their termite and moisture. It's assumed that the seller pays for it. No, it's not. You put it somewhere in writing, cover your client. So I just always really emphasize the due diligence period with the listing agent and that seller. If they're looking for quicker, that's your buyer's discretion. But according to the contract, they have to have all of these items done. So I would really enforce it there. Even with the FHA and VA addendum, I would just do it. I would make sure that it is known. And if, and of course, if you have any pushback from the listing agent, just explain to them. They're like, look, they are doing what they want to do, but in this time frame, and ensuring that they get all the boxes checked before we get to that settlement date. So I've always won with, I think I've done 3-week due diligence periods. And that seems to be the going. So settlement. So the proper execution and delivery to the closing attorney of all documents necessary to complete the transaction contemplated by this contract. Okay. Settlement date. The parties agree that settlement will take place on this date. So as Lucy was saying, usually 30 to 45 days after the contract effective date. Always check with the lender on closing timelines. Don't assume that a lender can, Also with the settlement date, that doesn't mean the client gets the keys in hand. So closing March 16th, we close, anywhere between 9 and 12, I would say. There's a high chance that they could get their keys in hand by the end of day. There aren't electronic recordings in North Carolina or in our area. So advise your client, if they need to move in over the weekend, then they need to close on a Thursday. Okay, so then it will be recorded at the latest Friday. Okay. That's not like here in Virginia where you're like, here you go, you bought a house. So just keep that in mind. Delay in settlement and closing. This actually has just been updated. So for your information, settlement date, if there are any delays, there are 7 days now built into the contract to allow for lender delays, appraisals, all of that. Okay. It used to be 4. Now it's 7. So closing, the completion of the legal process, which results into the transfer of title. Okay. So that really just discloses, hey, this is the process that it takes to actually close on the house. Okay. The North Carolina State Bar has determined that the performance of most acts and services required for a closing constitutes the practice of law and must be performed only by an attorney licensed to practice law in North Carolina. North Carolina doesn't like title groups. They don't do it. So just get with an attorney. State law prohibits unlicensed individuals or firms from rendering legal services or advice. Although non-attorney settlement agents may perform limited services in connection with the closing, they may not perform all the acts and services required to complete a closing. A closing involves significant legal issues that should be handled by an attorney. Okay. Also note, if you need anything changed from this agreement that is not in an addendum that we already have provided, your attorney is the only person that can write that up. You're welcome. Your attorney is the only person that can write that up. Okay. And they charge per addendum. But so right now in the kind of world we're in, we're doing appraisal guarantees. Your attorney has to write that up for you. So because it's a high moving market right now, what I did was I put it in the email, but I also put it in writing I used the RAIN form just for my offer, right? So this agent understood I wanted it in writing. It was on a Friday that I'm submitting this offer. The attorney doesn't open till Monday. So in writing, agreed by both parties, we just used RAIN as the example, right? Hey, these are going to be the terms written up from the law firm, and it'll be included in the contract. Okay, so get it in writing, because I know we're always like, okay, well, where do I put it, to make sure the offer works? Make it work. Do what you need to do. If you know that your client does a guarantee over appraised value, contact the attorney as soon as possible. And if they're a good attorney, they'll get it to you by the time you do your offer. But if not, you're writing offer at 9 o'clock at night, put it in where it needs to be, but you cannot add it to any existing contract or addendum. It's got to be written up by an attorney. Okay. Special assessments, a charge against the property by a governmental authority in addition to ad valorem taxes and requiring governmental services, blah, 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 blah. You guys can read, sorry. Buyers and sellers' respective responsibilities for the payment of special assessments are addressed in paragraph 6. Okay. Fixtures and exclusions. The parties should not assume that an item will or will not be included in the sale based on an oral or written statement or understanding that is not a part of this contract. Buyer and seller should be specific when negotiating what items will be included or excluded from the sale. Learn that lesson. Okay. So fixtures are included in purchase price. All existing fixtures are included in the sale as part of the purchase price, free of liens, unless excluded in the subparagraphs. They're talking about this, specific items. Go through this with your client. The alarms, the securities, the ranges, the built-in appliances, okay? Personal property, list it. So all fixture or other item described in subparagraph and that will not be a part of the sale should be identified in these subparagraphs, okay? So whatever is written on the MLS, the listing agent says does not convey, put it in here. Any item that is leased, put it in here. And most important, the personal property. If you want the fridge, put the fridge, refrigerator, washer, dryer, anything that is not fixed to the property and your client wants it, put it here. Okay. Again, do not assume, do not say, oh, well, I figured because you put on the MLS that I didn't have to put it there. Yes, you do. Always do it here. Okay. So take time with your client to really go over and, after you viewed the property, make sure that they saw, hey, hell, even put the dishwasher if you want, because sometimes it's a portable one, so just make sure that you are covering your client with whatever they need to convey. Any personal property that will be a part of the sale should be identified in this paragraph. Okay. So just it really hones in on the importance of these items that we're really bringing to light too. Buyer is strongly encouraged to conduct due diligence during due diligence period. If buyer is not satisfied with the result or progress of the buyer's due diligence, buyer should terminate this contract prior to the expiration of the due diligence period. Okay. If for some reason you have to extend the due diligence period, there is the addendum for that. Okay. I'll show you guys the addendum after of what is included. So that way you can reference if you want to, if you're writing this stuff down or if you're taking notes, you can reference, say, hey, if extension is needed, it is included in the additional addendums form. Because sometimes you look at it and you're like, well, hell, do I need the attorney for this or do I need it? So I'll try to make that easier. I'll try to identify that for you all. So it really breaks down the buyer's due diligence process in paragraph 4. Okay. I'm not going to go through this in detail with you guys because, again, you can read, but really focus on this page. Page 5 is super important. Okay. Everything has to be done in your due diligence period. Okay. Pages 5 and 6, super important. I'll note in subparagraph D, repair, improvement, negotiations agreement. Buyer acknowledges and understands that unless the parties agree otherwise, the property is being sold in its current condition, AKA ask for repairs if you need them. There's a form for that. That's your due diligence repair request. Okay. And this kind of goes over the buyer shall at buyer's expense promptly repair any damage to the property resulting from any activities of the buyer's agents and contractors. So if your home inspector broke something, or you guys ran into the wall on accident, you know what I mean? This is your obligation. This is outlining the obligation of repairing. Provided that buyer has delivered any agreed upon due diligence fee, buyer shall have the right to terminate this contract. Okay. Right here. As long as you are within your due diligence period. Everything has to be negotiated within this period. You can't submit your due diligence request on the final day of your due diligence and the seller doesn't get back to you within 2 days and you're trying to get a hold of them and say, hey, what are we doing with this? You're past the point of negotiations. You need to, if you're going to wait, if you have no choice but to wait till the last day, then you include the additional addendum that includes the extension of the due diligence period. Okay. So it's not just, hey, I'm requesting these repairs, get back to me when you can. No, you've already gone past your due diligence period. So the seller doesn't have to do anything. Okay. This and with your due diligence request, include termite, include possible appraisal items that you may see, or that do come up, or if it's, I haven't experienced condos out in North Carolina, but if the condo association does their inspection and something gets hit on that, thank you, Jordan, put it in there. Anything that you are requesting of the seller to handle, to take care of, put it in here. Okay. Buyer representation. So however they're purchasing, so cash or loan. All right. And get the number from the loan from the lender, because again, if they're doing a down payment, it's going to be different. All right. Moving right along. So buyer's obligation under this contract are not conditioned upon obtaining any loan or other funds from sources other than the buyer's own assets. Some mortgage loan programs and other programs providing funds for the purchase of property selected by buyer may impose repair obligations and or additional conditions or costs upon seller or buyer, and more information may be needed. Material changes with respect to funding the purchase of the property that affects the terms of the contract are material fact that must be disclosed. Okay. Okay. Also very important. In a time that we're in, a lot of our clients have to sell before they buy. This section, you're just disclosing that. Okay. Buyer does or does not have to sell or lease other real property in order to qualify for a new loan or to complete the purchase. Okay. Check yes or no. Check if applicable. Buyer's other property is under contract. Okay. So it's just disclosure at this point. I've added this box, very important for clients who need to sell before purchasing. This contract is not conditioned upon the sale or lease or closing of buyer's other property. If the parties agree to make this contract conditioned on the sale or lease or closing of buyer's other property, an appropriate contingency addendum should be drafted by a North Carolina real estate attorney. Okay, we figured this one out recently too. Thank you, Holly, because Holly reached out to the attorney to write up this addendum, and then she was informed that they don't do that. But Holly got down to it. She got the right answer. Yes, they do. We do not have a form that covers this contingency in a contract. So yes, the attorney has to write it up. All right. If they don't, get yourself a new attorney. Everybody good so far? Are you alive? I know I'm boring you. All right. Okay, yeah, so performance of buyer's financial obligation to the best of buyer's knowledge, there is no other circumstances or conditions existing as of the date of this offer that would prohibit buyer from performing buyer's financial obligation. Okay, really push that. Don't buy a car. Don't do anything crazy. Don't kill your loan, enforce that. Your lender will appreciate that. All right, so if the property is in HOA, we will check everything that applies. You know what I mean? So buyer has received a signed copy of the North Carolina Residential Property and Owners Association disclosure statement. This is in the listing. This is the documents listed by the seller. Okay. Either they have, or they have not, or they are exempt. Okay. Mineral and oil and gas rights. So these are all mandatory disclosures from the seller. Again, you'll find them in the disclosure section of the MLS. All right, they're just acknowledging that they've received it, they understand it. Buyer obligations, buyer responsibility for special assessments. I swear we've gone over this. Oh no, wait, that was with the buyer broker. Okay, so even here, the parties are advised to consult with the North Carolina attorney prior to signing this contract if severance of mineral and or oil gas rights has occurred. Okay, I haven't seen it yet. If you come across it and need some help, let me know. We'll figure it out. Responsibility for certain costs. Okay, this outlines their responsibility here. Very straightforward. Authorization to disclose information. Buyer authorizes the buyer's lender, the parties' real estate agents, and closing attorneys to provide this contract to any appraiser employed by buyer or by buyer's lender, and to release and disclose any buyer's closing disclosure, settlement statement, and or disbursement summary, or any information therein to the parties to the transaction, their real estate agents, and the buyer's lender. Okay. Seller representation, the ownership, that's found on the MLS. So check one. That applies. They've owned it for at least 1 year, over a year, and or does not yet own the property. That would be new construction. Lead-based paint. Okay. Owners association and dues. So seller authorizes and directs any owners association, any management company of the owners association, any insurance company, and any attorney who has previously represented the seller to release to the buyer, buyers, agents, representatives, closing attorneys, lender, true and accurate copies of the following items affecting the property, including any amendments. Cool, right? HOAs in North Carolina are weird. You just call the president, call the contact that they've provided to you, and they'll get you everything. They're really easy. And you just check, okay, check the box if they've got one or two, plug in all the information here. And again, that is all found on the MLS. Definitely the fee. And if it is in a homeowner association, is up in the middle right here. Make sure you can see it. And then this is also where you see flood zone and stuff. So right here in this section. Okay, all vital info there. Keeping it moving. Seller obligation, right? So evidence of title, payoff statements, and non-foreign status goes over that. Access to the property. Let us own the property. Okay, this says seller is allowing us to conduct our due diligence, verify the satisfactory completion of negotiated repairs, conduct a final walkthrough inspection of the property. Okay, I don't know who or why it doesn't exist in North Carolina, but the walkthrough form isn't a thing. And we've had many of agents say, well, we don't do walkthroughs. Yes, we do. Yes, you absolutely do. And because there's not a form, you can also, hey, include this in your due diligence request. You know what I mean? Cover all your tracks, cover everything, because listing agents, obviously they don't walk through, their seller every little piece of this contract. So put it in writing, make sure it's known. Yes, it's in writing here, but again, it doesn't hurt to emphasize. Okay. Seller's obligation include providing existing utilities operating at seller's cost. Okay, that's just no option there. Seller has to do it, including any connections and dewinterizing. Okay. See warning in paragraph 4 above for the limitation on buyer's rights to terminate this contract as a result of the buyer's continued investigation of the property following the expiration of the due diligence period. Okay, we already did that. Removal of seller's property. Seller shall remove by the date possession is made available to buyer all personal property which is not a part of the purchase and all garbage and debris from the property. Holy moly, can we put this in Virginia's? Okay, so removal of all of your crap, you know, make sure that's why it's so important to have that final walkthrough. Okay, you guys know you all are experienced agents here, but really emphasize that. Okay, don't forget about it. It's very important. So seller shall furnish at settlement an affidavit and indemnification agreement in form of satisfactory to buyer and buyer's title insurer of any executed by seller and any person or entity who has performed or furnished labor, services, materials, or rental equipment to the property within 120 days prior to the date of settlement, and who may be entitled to claim a lien against the property as described in NCGS 44A8, verifying that each person or entity has been paid in full and agreeing to indemnify buyer, lender, and buyer's title insurer against all loss from any cause or claim arising therefore. 120 days. Okay. Designation of lien agent, payment and satisfaction of liens. Seller shall have designated a lien agent and seller shall deliver to buyer as soon as reasonably possible a copy of the appointment of lien agent. Okay. Good title, legal access. Seller shall execute and deliver a general warranty deed for the property in recordable form no later than settlement, which shall convey fee simple, marketable, and insurable title without exception for mechanics liens and free of any other liens. Okay. Buyer's failure to conduct a survey or examine title of the property prior to the expiration of the due diligence period does not relieve the seller of their obligation to deliver good title under this paragraph. I'm just beating the fact of due diligence. Okay. If any sale of the property may be a short sale, consideration should be given to attaching a short sale addendum. So that is a thing. All right. Deed taxes and fees. Put the buyer's legal names here. It will show up on the deed. Agreement to pay buyer expenses. Seller shall pay at settlement blank towards any of the buyer's expenses associated with the purchase of the property at the discretion of the buyer and or lender, if any, including the FHA, VA, lender, and inspection costs that buyer is not permitted to pay. Okay. We don't really know the price of this. Okay. So this is why it can be a little confusing, you know, going back to your question, Carrie. You know, does it cover that timeline and the costs? Yeah, sure. But we don't know the cost of that. We don't know how much everything's going to total. I mean, we really could, but I would never want to shortchange my client. Okay. So again, just always put it in writing where it's not shoved in the middle of a contract. You know, so the sellers and buyer really understand the terms of that, you know, are coming to light. So parties should review the FHA VA addendum prior to entering in amount in paragraph 8. Certain FHA VA lender and inspection costs cannot be paid by buyer at settlement, and the amount of these should be included in the blank above. Okay. Do we do this? I have not. Shame on me, right? So termite can run you anywhere from 65 to, I don't know, 130. I don't know. You know, so going through the costs and really breaking it down, could that save you time on an addendum? Sure. But the addendum really specifies, you know what I mean? People want to see a breakdown of costs. You know, they don't want to just see a number here and they're going to be like, I'm not going to pay that. They think this is closing costs, you know? So essentially this can cover everything, you know, that you absolutely need covered for your client. But what happens if you shortchange? got to do an addendum, right? You have to get the seller to agree again. So do an addendum. Can't enforce that enough. Okay. Owners Association fees charged. So seller shall pay any fees required for confirming seller's account payment information on owners. Okay. This just says, hey, that's your responsibility. Payment of special assessments. Seller shall pay in full at settlement all special assessments that are approved prior to settlement. Okay. Late listing penalties. All property tax late listing penalties, if any, shall be paid by the seller. Negotiated repairs improvements. Negotiated repairs improvements shall be made in a good and workmanlike manner and buyer shall have the right to verify same prior to settlement. That's cool and all, but I don't want Joe Schmo down the road doing the work to the house. Put in there licensed contractor. Put in there who you want, excuse me, to do the work. Okay. Seller's breach of contract, see paragraph 23 for buyer's remedies in the event of breach of this contract. Okay. Prorations and adjustments. Unless otherwise agreed, the following items shall be prorated with seller responsible for the prorated amounts, the taxes, rents, dues, all of that stuff. Home warranty. No home warranty is to be provided by the seller, or buyer may obtain a 1-year warranty at a cost not to exceed whatever you guys think, which includes sale tax, and seller agrees to pay for it at closing, at settlement, excuse me, or if the seller already has a home warranty, that's transferable. Click that apply. Home warranties typically have limitations on and conditions to coverage. Refer specific questions to the home warranty company. Okay. Risk of loss, condition of property at closing. So the risk of loss or damage by fire or other casualty prior to closing shall be upon seller. Seller is advised not to cancel existing insurance on the property until after confirming recordation of the deed. So once it's recorded, don't touch it. Tell your clients here on the listing side, we don't do anything until we get word that it is recorded. Okay. Delays can happen, you know, especially from a Friday to a Monday. You know what I mean? Things could happen over the weekend. The buyer could be shady and go to the property, you know, who knows what could happen. Okay. So always have the seller protect the home and verify it, you know, because North Carolina won't transfer over utilities until it's been said to. So Carrie, you can just come on and talk to me. I have seen stories about this contractor didn't do work properly, so I ripped apart the home and they fixed with seller's permission, of course, and we were the buyer side. Nice. Good for you. That's awesome. Yeah, it's just do it. Don't be, I think, you know, when you get into this industry, you have a lot of faith in people and you have a lot of, okay, well, they'll do a good job. No, they're going to do a good job because you put it on paper that they're going to do a good job. You know, they're licensed, you're protecting your client. They are doing very specific job.
I'll give you the cliff notes, but they were supposed to replace deteriorated siding because it was cedar lap. And the contractor did not look at the siding. They took pictures, and pictures don't tell the whole story. So I had to go down there and rip siding off. I had to get on the ladder, climb, and rip siding off to make them fix it. And then they blame the home inspector. Well, the home inspector should have told us what siding needs to be replaced. And I said, no, contract states all deteriorated, and that is your job to find all deteriorated.
Yeah, that's just lazy.
It really was, but we got it fixed and we got it done. And the seller was there. And as I'm ripping off window casings, she turned her head and said, do what you got to do. I said, okay.
Nice. I mean, people know, you know, it's a lot of these sellers, they know that a lot of responsibility is on them, you know, and a lot of them want to make it right. But it's all the third parties that we have to include sometimes that don't feel the same way. so. Oh yeah, just definitely. And that, I mean, kudos to you, girl. Would have done the same thing. And a lot of that is, I know a lot of other agents would have hesitation doing that because of liability, right?
Well, the listing agent was also owner of the contract company, and he never even put eyes on it.
Mm.
And when I sent him pictures, he only fixed of what I sent pictures. And I said, if you actually read your email, it said in no way, shape, or form does this include all discrepancies. And I've asked to set up a time to complete a walkthrough prior to closing, so we don't run into an issue at closing and not close.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of push and pull there, but it got done.
Sure there was, girl. That's what I'm saying. These agents that they need to reread the contract. Really, that's really what it comes down to. That's why, I'm having this training, because we are running into so many agents and issues that, they're so misinformed. And all they need to do is read the contract, and really emphasize that your seller's responsibility, what is in writing already, so we don't have to do our addendums, to cover ourselves and to cover our clients. But here we are, you know what I mean? So, and we know how it is. We want to be cordial with the other side. We want to work together. We want it to be easy, functional. But when it comes down to it, they don't know their client's right, so we want to ensure that we know our client's right on the buying side and what is expected and what is in writing, not assumed, of the seller and the buyer. So again, kudos to you, girlfriend. Number 12, we're rocking and rolling, ladies. We'll probably be out here right at 12. So hang in there with me. Delay in settlement and closing. This paragraph shall apply if one party is ready, willing, and able to complete settlement on the settlement date. But if it is not possible for the other party to complete settlement by the settlement date, that's the delaying party. In such event, the delaying party shall be entitled to a delay in settlement and shall give as much notice as possible to the non-delaying party and closing attorney. If the delaying party fails to complete settlement and closing within 7 days of the settlement date, including any amended settlement date agreement to including in writing by the parties, then the delaying party shall be in breach, and the non-delaying party may terminate this contract and shall be entitled to enforce any remedies available to such party under this contract for the breach. Okay, just do the extension if you need it. Don't wait till the last day, because we know how real estate is. Okay, if you have already gone past your closing date, just put the extension in place. Okay, whether there is 7 days built in or not, use your best judgment. Don't allow 5 days to go by and you're like, yeah, the lender says we'll close tomorrow or today. Just don't trust it. There's a form in place for a reason. So cover yourself and your client. So 13, possession, including all means of access to the property, keys, codes, including security codes, garage door openers, all that jazz, shall be delivered upon closing as defined by paragraph 1, unless otherwise provided below. Early possessions, okay, or rent backs. So if you're using any of these, that's when possession will take place. Consider attaching additional provisions addendum. We will go through that one, or vacational rental addendum, for this stuff. All right. Additional addenda. So whatever else is included, you must check here. Okay. So check any item that pertains to this particular contract and circumstance. So if it's VA or FHA, here's that financing addendum right here. It was built before 78. Lead-based paint. All right. If you're doing a loan assumption, additional provisions, check this one. Check this one. If you have a template set up, just check it already. All right. And then identify other attorney or party drafted addenda. So this was my example earlier: appraisal guarantee, buyer home sale contingency. All right. Just put it in there. Make it a known. Hey, this is a part of the contract. Okay. Under North Carolina law, real estate brokers are not permitted to draft addenda to this contract. Right. If you get any pushback from an attorney, shove that in their face. All right. Do your job. Assignments. This contract may not be assigned. Tax deferred exchange. In the event buyer and seller desires to exchange a tax deferred exchange in connection with the conveyance of the property, buyer and seller agree to cooperate in effecting such exchange, provided, however, that the exchanging party shall be responsible for all additional costs associated with such exchange, and provided further that a non-exchanging party shall not assume any additional liability with respect to such tax deferred exchange. Buyer and seller shall execute such additional documents, including assignment of this contract in connection therewith, at no cost to the non-changing party, as shall be required to give effect to this provision. Okay. So parties, this contract shall be binding upon and shall in your to the benefit of buyer and seller in their respective years, successors, and assigns. As used herein, words in the singular include the plural and the masculine includes the feminine, and neuter genders as appropriate. Did not know that was in here. All right, survival. If any provision herein contained which by its nature and effect is required to be observed, kept, or performed after the closing, it shall survive the closing and remain binding upon and for the benefit of the parties hereunto it's fully observed, kept, or performed. Okay. Entire agreement. Conduct of transaction. So the parties agree that any action between them relating to the transaction contemplated by this contract may be conducted by electronic means. Okay. We're going to sign electronically, y'all. We are in 2022. So this contract may be signed in multiple origins or counterparts, all of which together constitute one and the same instrument. Okay. Computation of days, times of days, unless otherwise provided for purposes of this contract, the term days shall mean consecutive calendar days, including Saturday, Sunday, and holidays, which federal, state, local, and religious or religious. For the purposes of calculating days, the count of days shall begin on the following day, the day upon which any act or notices has provided in this contract was required to be performed or made. So any reference to a date or time of day shall refer to the date or time of that day in the state of North Carolina. All right. Breach by buyer. In the event of material breach of this contract by buyer, seller shall be entitled to any earnest money, the payment of the earnest money deposit, and the due diligence fee to the seller without regard to their respective amounts, including zero, together shall serve as liquidated damages and as seller's sole and exclusive remedy for such breach, but without limiting seller's rights under paragraph 4E and 4F for damage to the property. It is acknowledged by the parties that the amount of the liquidated damages is, I can't read, y'all, compensatory and not punitive, such amount being reasonable estimation of the actual loss that the seller would incur as a result of a breach of this contract by the buyer. The payment to the seller of the liquidated damages shall not constitute a penalty or forfeiture, but actual compensation for the seller's anticipated loss. So the breach by the seller. In the event of a material breach of this contract by the seller, if buyer elects to terminate this contract as a result of the breach, buyer shall be entitled to the return of both the earnest money deposit and the due diligence fee, together with the reasonable costs actually incurred by the buyer in connection with the buyer's due diligence fee. This provision shall not affect any other remedies available to the buyer. All right, attorney's fees. The parties acknowledge and agree to the terms of the contract. Okay, so attorney fees, whoever, if you hire them, they're your fees. That's what I'm reading. If legal proceedings are brought by buyer or seller against the other to collect the earnest money, due diligence fee, or due diligence costs, the parties agree that a party shall be entitled to recover reasonable attorney's fees to the extent permitted under the North Carolina Gen 621. The parties acknowledge and agree that the terms of this contract with respect to entitlement to the earnest money. That doesn't say who pays. I just realized that. A party seeking recovery of attorney's fees under this general act must first give written notice to the other party that they have 5 days from the mailing of the notice to pay the outstanding amount without the attorney's fees. Okay. So you can go after the other party for attorney's fees. Is that what I'm getting here? I think so.
I think it's typically the party who brings the suit. If
Mhm.
they lose, they have to pay the other party's attorney fees.
Okay.
That's
I couldn't even say that.
but it's North Carolina, anything's possible.
I know. We'll get clarification on that part. All right, we are at the finish line. So the North Carolina Association of Realtors and the North Carolina Bar Association make no representation as to the legal validity and how do you say that word? Adequacy of any provision of this form in any specific transaction. If you do not understand this form or feel that it does not provide for your legal needs, you should consult a North Carolina real estate attorney. Okay. It's binding, right? Your buyer signs here. If you have a second buyer, they sign here. Fill in the seller's name, please. All right. So if the buyer is an entity, information here, wired fraud alert, a warning. Again, initial the bottom of the page, insert at least one address and or electronic delivery address each party and agent approves for the receipt of any notice. Okay, so buyer's mailing address and then email address and all your information. Okay, so make sure the firm license number is here. You don't put yours. Yours goes here. Right, and just mark yourself accordingly. And crazy part is we don't sign this. So selling agent or listing agent, we don't sign this agreement. This is strictly between buyer and seller. Okay. Acknowledgement and receipt of monies. This is very important and is included as this is your 15th page of the contract. Okay. So whoever is receiving what needs to sign and date when they receive it. Okay. So listing agent acknowledgement of receipt of due diligence fee. Okay. Whenever they get it and then fill it out. Or if the seller acknowledges, if they receive it. Escrow agent acknowledgement of receipt of initial earnest money deposit. Sign and date. All right. Or if there's any additional. Okay. Oh, the lovely additional provisions addendum. This is where you will put everything that we just talked about as far as additional items to cover your client. Okay. Always look this over. You may think that you have an easy client. We don't need to do termite, whatever the case. Always look it over. Just make sure. Again, property line, seller, buyer, and the things that are already included on this one. So expiration of offer, if you want your offer to expire. If there is septic system installation and modification. So as part of the buyer's due diligence, buyer intends to obtain an improvement permit or written evaluation from the county health department for a check for a conventional or other ground absorption sewage system for a blank bedroom home. Okay, so 3, 4, 5, whatever. Except for the costs for clearing the property, all costs and expenses of obtaining such permit or written evaluation shall be borne by buyer unless otherwise agreed. Seller shall be responsible for clearing that portion of the property required by the county to perform the tests and or inspection by no later than, you put the date here. Okay. Rental income investment property. So the property shall be conveyed subject to existing lease and or rights of the tenant. Seller shall deliver to buyer on or before this date true and complete copies of all existing leases, rental agreements, outstanding tenant notices, written statements of all oral tenant agreements, statements of all tenants' deposits, uncured defaults by the seller or tenant, and claims made by the tenant, if any. Okay. any security deposit held in connection with any lease shall be transferred to the buyer at settlement and otherwise in accordance with the North Carolina tenant security deposit. Seller will or will not transfer to buyer any pet fee deposit at settlement. So that's obvious if the new buyer wants to allow pets or not. So do not use this provision for property subject to the North Carolina Vacation Rental Act. A vacation rental addendum is to be used. Okay. This part. This is the only blank that you will see on really any of the forms, and we use it to our advantage. Okay. Agreed upon repairs and or improvements. Seller agrees prior to settlement date and at seller's expense to complete the following items. Okay. Termite and moisture requests for your VA clients, and or if you just want to request it for your client, and any requests for septic and well inspections to be pumped or to be, like the inspections to be conducted by the seller. So if you want to counter this part, all right, put it in here. Any potential appraisal repairs. We are not trained appraisers. We don't go to school for that, but we have knowledge of what some appraisers will hit. Okay. That comes with experience, that comes with education. So include these items in here and, just be open and transparent with the listing agent, say, hey, look, I see this. What do you think? Is this something that the sellers are aware of? Have the conversation. But include them on here or possible HOA and condo inspection repairs. I have not gone through any really troublesome HOAs in North Carolina. I have not done a condo yet. So this may be a place where we could put it, within your due diligence timeframe, however long it takes to get the resale back. If they do inspections out there, I don't know. But I just wanted to throw it in here again, because that is an additional item for those clients that do have, the HOA or condo association attached to that property. Okay. Lucy, am I missing anything that you can think of?
Think so. But again, when you're requesting these things, and I make this clear in our Virginia classes as well, don't just state what's wrong. State
Right.
what you expect the remedy to be and in what time frame.
That's right. Absolutely. Be specific as possible, because someone can come back and say, look, you didn't have a time frame on here. So what good was it then that you included it in there, so be smart about it, make sure. And you may feel like you're reiterating yourself, right? You're like, well, this is already on the first page on the contract. Just put it in there. I promise you, it will alleviate a lot of stress out of your life. Line item 5, if you have a manufacturer at home, that comes additional. You just need to get the VIN number and put it in here. Pool spa inspection preparation. Any pools or spa inspections buyer may choose to conduct shall be at buyer's expense in accordance with the contract. Any costs associated with putting the pool or spa in operable condition so it may be properly inspected. Filling the pool with water, operating electricity and filtration system, and any costs associated with any necessary re-winterizing of the pool and spa following any inspection shall be the responsibility of check a box, seller or buyer. Okay. So this is a really good one to have because that's a big expense, or could be. So mark accordingly. All right. In the event of a conflict between this addendum and the contract, this addendum shall control, except that in the case of such a conflict as to the description of the property or the identity of the buyer or seller, the contract shall control. Okay. Those are the only items. So anything you have on here will trump the contract. Okay. The North Carolina Association of Realtors and North Carolina Bar Association make no representation. Okay. So same thing. Buyers will sign. And that is that. And then here is the Residential Property and Owners Association disclosure statement. So this is uploaded by the seller. This will be in the documents. This should be filled out by them prior to, so you can review it properly with your clients, okay? We looked over this. I don't know if we even got to this on the listing, to be honest with you, but this breaks down the disclosures that your client may need to know about the property. So property address, what year was it built? If there's any problems, malfunctions or defects with the dwelling's foundation, the fireplace, the floors, the windows. I mean, it gets very specific in here, you guys. So they check yes or no representation. So that's the extent, and they fill in what they need to explain if necessary, if it applies, but you have it in writing. Yes, I know. No, I do not know. Or I have no idea. Okay. So there are 4 pages of this. This includes the HOA information on here, what the HOA covers. Okay. So HOA will be here on page 3. Okay. And then what it covers, are this page 4, management fees, buildings, master insurance. I mean, yes or no, it is plain as day. I love that about North Carolina. Okay. And your clients will initial each page. So, and then the following, the mineral and oil and gas rights. This should be filled out again by the seller. You don't have any knowledge of it. They should. I have not seen yet that there have been disclosure rights. It's all marked no or no representation. Your buyer has to initial each line. Okay. Lead-based paint. Very straightforward. The addendum is attached and made part if the property was built before 78. If they know anything about it, it'll be marked accordingly. And your client will mark that they have received the pamphlet, Protect Your Family from Lead in Your Home. Your brokerage should have that on file, or it is found on the North Carolina Commission site. The agent also acknowledges this one. Okay. So buyer seller initial, you acknowledge the agent has informed the seller of the seller's obligation. Okay. The listing agent should have their initial here. Client sign. Look, we actually signed this one. Selling agent signs this one. Listing agent signs. Okay. Lead-based paint is very important. Your FHA and VA addendum, again, fill out the information up top, mark accordingly, read these notices, okay? And the clause for FHA is expressly agreed that notwithstanding any other provisions of this contract, the purchaser shall not be obligated to complete the purchase of the property described herein or to incur any penalty for forfeiture of earnest money deposits or otherwise unless the purchaser has been given in accordance with HUD, FHA, or DVA requirements, a written statement issued by the Federal Housing Commissioner, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or direct enforcement lender, setting forth the appraised value of the property of not less than whatever you're wanting to purchase at, or whatever, your appraisal guarantee says, or whatever. The purchaser shall, however, have the privilege and option of proceeding with the consumption of the contract without regard to the amount of the appraised valuation. Okay. The appraised value is arrived at the determination, the maximum mortgage of the department. Okay. HUD does not, guarantee, not warrant the value nor the condition of the property. VA, it is expressly agreed that notwithstanding any provision of the contract, the buyer shall not incur any penalty by forfeiture of the earnest money deposit or otherwise by obligated to complete the purchase described herein if the contract purchase price or cost exceeds the reasonable value of the property established by the Department of Veterans Affairs. The buyer shall, however, have the privilege and option of proceeding with the consumption of the contract without regard to the amount of the reasonable value established by DVA. If buyer elects to complete the purchase at an amount in excess of the reasonable value established by the DVA, buyer shall pay such excess amount in cash from a source which buyer agrees to disclose to the DVA and which buyer represents will not be from borrowed funds except as approved by DVA. If DVA reasonable value of the property is less than the sales price, seller shall have the option of reducing the sales price to an amount equal to the DVA reasonable value, and the parties to the sale may close at such lower sales price with appropriate adjustments to the sales contract. If buyer obtains a VA loan, the DVA may or may not require a well water, septic, sewer, and or wood destroying insect inspections to be performed. If required to be performed, such inspections may or may not be required to be at seller's expense. Okay. How confusing is that? May or may not. Okay. That's, saying well or septic, not necessarily falls on the seller, but it could. If you need it covered by the seller, ask for it. If such inspections are required to be performed and are required to be at seller's expense, seller agrees to pay the cost of such inspections, subject to the limit set forth in paragraph 8 in the contract. Okay. Review that contract, review that paragraph again if necessary. All right. And yeah, that's it. Real estate certification. You're saying, hey, it's true to the best of our knowledge and belief, and it is agreed that any other agreement entered into by any of the parties is fully disclosed and attached. Okay. Disclose, have them sign. We also sign this one. Okay. Professional services disclosure. That's what that looks like. Fill it out accordingly. Go over these big highlighted boxes with your client. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Due diligence request and requirement, agreement. Based upon buyer's due diligence, the buyer requests and the seller agrees to the following. Prepared requests go here. Be detailed in what it is being asked for. Okay. Specific. Okay. Release of inspection reports. They do or do not agree. So, I mean, if you're asking for repairs, I'd highly advise it, or take pictures, or do what you need to do. It's at your buyer's discretion, though. Cobain's. So then this is the agreement to amend the contract. This is the this is the form that does exist with our forms. So buyer, seller, the property address, buyer and seller hereby agree to amend the contract as set forth. If there is a purchase price change, if there is additional earnest money, deposit date, building deposit, due diligence fee, if it's changed, if the period has changed. So this is where we extend it. Okay. The escrow agent has changed. The settlement date has changed. All right. And I put it in here and made that change for 7 days. Expenses, the amount seller shall pay at settlement. So if any of that changes, this is the form that you use. And then buyer signs, initials, and voila, we got through it. Look, I got a minute left. Thank you for hanging in there. Lucy, thank you for staying on. Nikki, thank you for staying on and getting all the info before you get here, girl. I wish you were coming to Virginia so you could be with us at our firm.
Right. I know people keep telling me, do you want to, because right now I'm with Remax and they're like, do you want to go to a bigger firm like Remax or KW? And I'm like, and the one thing I love about bigger ones is that there's so much training and that I love. And Matt's sister, Shelly, she actually got her license in Tennessee like 2 months ago.
Nice.
Yeah. And but she's with like a little boutique firm, and so I've like been sending her like some of my trainings and like stuff like that, and because it's stuff that she doesn't like have access to, because it's not like, but they're like bigger companies have like higher fees, and I'm like, yeah, but like you can't put a price on like education.